we're trading CPI data, which is inflation data. If this data comes out lower than expected, I want to take NAS buys. I want to take gold buys. If you're trading the US dollar, I'd be looking for it to drop if the data comes out lower. If inflation data comes out higher, this goes against the overall bias, but I would still look for NAS to drop, I would look for gold to drop, and I would look for the US dollar to gain strength. But be careful on taking trades going against the bias, because there's a pretty good chance, as if we do see that drop on NAS or gold, it might recover it very quickly. We want to see breaks of structure. We want to see a surprise to the upside on the data if we take those sells. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's see. Gold spiked to the downside already, above expected. Barely above expected. No, this is mixed. Be careful on that drop. NAS spiked to the downside and so did gold. I don't like that. CPI year over year came out a little bit below expected. Look at gold, already flipped. If anyone took those buys, that's kind of impulsive, but gold's still sitting at all-time highs, so be careful. This data's mixed. Year over year, headline came out below, and core CPI month over month came out above. I'm still bullish on NAS. This doesn't really change much for me, but we are seeing a drop to the downside. NAS is breaking support. See how tech stocks look. Tech stocks. A little bit of a drop to the downside. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm not entering anything based on this. But if NAS continues to drop lower, I'm going to wait for NYSE open, and I'm still taking buys. I'm still looking for buys. This is exactly what I said what would happen on a stronger print. Core CPI came out higher. Look what happened to the numbers here. Remember, do you guys remember what the number was for a 50 basis point cut? We were at 30% probability, right? Now we're at 15. This is exactly what you're seeing. You see the markets, they start to price in a 25 basis point rate cut, and that gives you those NAS sells, US 30 sells, and gold sells. Now, I'm not in this because, like I said, I don't want to go against the bias. The markets are still pricing in rate cuts. For me, this is still bullish for NAS. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a pullback for me to get into buys. I just need to wait for this volatility to settle. Just like if you take a look at gold right now, anyone who took buys, it's fucking with everybody. If you took sells, it fucked with you and it flipped. If you took buys, it's fucked with you twice. So be careful on mixed data. For me, I'm still holding my overall bias. I need to let this volume or this volatility settle, and I'm still going to be looking for buys. If you want to take gold sells, if you want to take NAS sells, at least get, at least on the lower time frame, like the 5 minute on gold, at least get a closure below this zone. Same thing with NAS. Like you can see the 5 minute here just kind of flipped in both directions, gold especially. 250 pips in both directions. It's just destroying people. Anyone who puts those fucking buy limits and sell limits and all that crazy shit, it's not worth doing it when you have mixed data like this. NAS, just like I said, if it comes out a little bit above, you're going to get that spike lower, and I don't expect it to hold. Now, if it does hold, I at least want to see a closure below a support, and then I'll start looking for sells. But the initial reaction, I'm not selling that. The data didn't come out strong enough for me. And that's going to come with time, experience. Like you can see here, if you look at this little surprise box, you can see that everything is, 0.1 above and then 0.1 below, and then in between we have zeros, meaning there's no surprise in the data. I said this in the beginning, if the data comes out exactly as expected, it might not be a good tradable opportunity. For me, I'm choosing to stay away from this. I mean, if you took NAS buys when it hit the support, I think it's a little risky. Take a look at tech stocks. We're having a pretty aggressive drop to the downside. Apple, Microsoft, Meta, if anything, if we get some closures on NAS, I'm not against looking for some sells as the market stop pricing in the 50 basis point. But in terms of price action right now, I'm not seeing it. I would at least like to wait to see a strong 5 minute closure. And then what I'll do is I'll watch the next candle, because sometimes you get this closure and the next candle just comes right back up, right? Still following the bullish bias. But if we get this closure, the candle creates an upper wick and starts to flip, that's usually when I'll enter an impulsive entry and then just watch it at the next zone to see if it holds. And the only reason I'm be comfortable taking NAS sells is because of this. Tech stocks. These are all the companies, the top 8 companies listed in NASDAQ. And you can see, if you take a look at them, look how aggressive they're dropping to the downside, right? Everywhere. This is exactly what it looks like when the markets stop pricing in a higher rate cut. Like you guys literally, just to make this less confusing, you just saw it happen in real time. It said 30% chance before, now it says 15 for a 50 basis point, and it said 70% chance for a 25, and now it says 85%. So as the markets expect a smaller rate cut, that gives you that immediate bearish push on gold and NAS. And I haven't looked at it, but I can almost guarantee you the US dollar, if I put up the US dollar, I guarantee before even checking, it pushed up. Yeah. The dollar actually played out better than gold and NAS. Really nice push here. If anyone took any breakouts on any currency pairs, just be careful for it to recover this move. We need to make sure this holds. NAS gave you a pretty decent closure here. Now I'll take a look at tech stocks to see what it's doing. Still pushing to the downside. I do want to be careful that if this flips. I think it can flip aggressively. Like I said, I still like the idea. You did get a closure. I think I'm going to wait till NYSE open. To be completely transparent, it could be tempting to take these sells. If you do, I don't know that I would have stops all the way up here, like your stop loss. If it flips back into this zone, you get a closure back in here, I would just close the trade. I think it's risky to sell NAS. At the same time, I understand this can be tempting because looking at it's still holding below the support, and tech stocks are pretty bearish still. The problem is, and I've seen this happen a lot, look at Microsoft already flipping. There's a pretty good chance, especially because this is just a line chart, NVIDIA is starting to flip as I'm talking too. So there's no guarantee it's going to flip back bullish, but if they do, Google's already flipped, right? So if they do, remember the overall bias is still looking for buys. The market is still expecting rate cuts. That's still bullish. Gold held. If anyone took a 5-minute closure there, this is exactly what I was talking about, but for NAS. The technical analysis doesn't change. You get that closure below support, you can literally see the upper wick, and then as it flips bearish, that's when I would take those sells. But you can see that NAS isn't doing that, and that's what I was watching. Look at the dollar. This is also helping gold sells, right? Combined with the fact that we're sitting at all-time highs on gold, pretty nice move to the downside. So if dollar strength holds, which I don't think it will, if it does, you might see a pretty good profit-taking move from these highs on gold, which we talked about before the data came out. The reason I don't think dollar strength will hold is, like I had said with NAS too, we're still pricing in rate cuts. So it's not like the markets are expecting rate hikes. The only thing you're seeing right now, and this is still a good trade if anybody's in it, now we're at 13% probability for a 50 basis point cut. We were just at 15, right? It's still leaning toward a 25. But I can almost guarantee you we're going to come back in a couple hours, and this 50 basis point is probably going to be right back up to 20, 25%. I can almost guarantee that. Obviously, we don't know for a fact, but if that happens, the markets are going to start selling the dollar back off. This is just a pullback, which is what I explained could happen before. If the data comes out as expected, the markets start pricing in the 25 basis point, you get that dollar strength, you get those gold sells. Now, for me, I'm okay missing these gold sells. This is just me. I'm okay missing those gold sells. If I go against the bias, especially when data doesn't really confirm that it's going to do something like gold is doing right now, I would have taken an entry on NAS, right? And you can see NAS, it gave very similar price action to gold. Very strong bearish candle. It gave a little bit of another wick. And like I was saying, NAS looks tempting to sell. But I just want to build good habits. If the data isn't confirming that I want to sell NAS, I'm not going to sell it regardless of what price action is telling me. I just said 3 minutes ago that this is going to flip. Look at NVIDIA, look at Tesla, Google, Apple, Microsoft, like a fucking psychic, Meta, everything flipped. I'm just being cocky when I say that, but right? So it's just experience on seeing this shit. You get that initial drop to the downside, it's unlikely that it's going to hold, completely flips. And this is how understanding the data and how it impacts these assets can help you. At the same time, be careful. I still want to wait for NYSE open before I take anything on NAS. That's just me, because now look what's happening. Everything just flipped again. It's not every day that you're going to trade important data and be able to take a trade, or at least not immediately. Sometimes the market needs to clear up a little bit of its volatility, and then we just continue to follow the overall bias. So if you understand what mixed data looks like, or when data goes against the overall bias, this is what can help you either stay away from a trade or just take a step back and wait for the right opportunity to take that trade.